then again, when the compiler understands that this is an array and hence it encounters an integer number, it will go back to this array and it will look into the list, and if it sees that the list has got an element at the index of 0, or the list has got an element or an item at the first place, then it will take that element, or it will take this item and replace it in here. So it will have something like this. So let's erase this off. And when the compiler retrieves that item from the 0th index, or from the first place, and it replaces the array name with the item, then you will have at the behind the scenes, you will have something like this, which means it's actually now reading it as put or display this string on the console. So that's how it's actually working. So what happens if we try to, access the last, if we want to access the last item, which is the X, and we want to display it on the screen? How do we do that? So as we know, the array is in a sequential order, and if you follow that order, and the order will actually start from the index of 0. If we follow that order, we can reach the last element, or the index of the last element. So the first element is the 0th index. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. So if we put 3 in here, and let's save this, and then let's clear the console, let's rerun the program, and now we have got something like X. So we wanted to view that, or our user wanted to view that. So as you can see, although we have got 4 elements, let me show you something else. This will be a little bit interesting. Grocery, shopping, list, linked. And let's comment this part out, and let's rerun the program. Now you see something different, which means we counted the array from 0, or the index of 0, because as we know, the array index will always start from 0. So we counted the array from 0, then we moved to 1, 2, and 3. But there are 4 elements, or there are 4 items. If you want to know the total number of elements, or if you want to know the total number of items held inside this array, then you will get a whole number, or you will get an integer or a positive number, and it will give you the compiler will actually start counting like 1, 2. The compiler will read your code in a manner like there is 1 element, there is 2, there is 3, and there is 4. So there are 4 elements in total. But when you want to access the elements, or when you want to retrieve, or when you want to extract a single element, your counting will start from 0. But if you want to know the length, which means how many elements are present inside the array, then you can use this method length, and this will show you how many elements are present in the length. So when the compiler is trying to read the length of the array, it will start reading from 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4 elements. But when we try to access, or when we try to retrieve a value, or an item, or an element from the array, then we will have to read it from 0, or the 0th index. So if we want to access spices, suppose we want to show that to our user, so we will have to start counting it from 0, 1, 2. So this is in the 2nd index, or in the 3rd position. So we can say 2. Let's save this, let's rerun the program, and you can see that it's showing spices. So what happens if we try to place an index number that's beyond the length? What happens if we try to place 4 in here? Let's see what happens. Let's clear the screen again. let's rerun the code. You see that it doesn't show up anything. Why? Because as I've already told you, with this subscript operator, if the compiler sees, or if the compiler encounters something like this, which means if the compiler sees that there is a name of the array, and how does it understand that this is an array? It will look at the square brackets, and if it finds an integer number inside the square bracket, it will understand that we are trying to access a certain element from the array. So because our accessing, or our accessing procedure, or our extracting procedure will involve the counting from the zeroth index, which means we'll have to count the array from the zeroth index, which is 0, 1, 2, and 3. Then when it reads that we are trying to access the fifth element, and there are no fifth element, which means we're trying to access the element with the index of 4. We know that if we start counting from the first item, we see that 0, 1, 2, 3. There are three in there are actually, the index ends at 3. So we don't have a index at the fourth. We don't have an index that's 4, or we don't have an element at the fifth position. So we know that if we try to extract an element, we will have to make, or if we try to extract the last element from the array, that means it will be one less than the length of the array. So suppose if we take this example, let's copy this, let's erase this off, and let's say we are trying, what we're doing in here is that we are accessing the length, which means the compiler will read the entire array as it will read the entire array, and it will look at how many items are there inside the array. It will see that there are 4 items, so it will have 4 inside, and if we try to negate 1 from this item, and let's say we save this and we can run it, then you see that it's showing X, which means the last element, which means that we have got, or we're telling the compiler to give us the length of the array. So it gives us 4 in this place, and when we negate 1, or when we subtract 1 from the from 4, then we get 3, and this portion will have the integer value of 3, and hence it's actually accessing the last element. As you can see, that if we try to, or if we can also access the last element, or the last element will always have an index of 1 less than the entire, or the total length of the array.